We need to talk about that overwhelming guilt that we carry for wanting to be healthy. It's why we apologize for wanting to know the menu before we go to parties and events. It's why we hesitate to say no to the junk food our friends and family push on us as if that junk food is some kind of precious gift. We are stuck in a world that's designed to keep us sick and struggling. For over 40 years, we ate what we were told to eat and followed the health advice that we were given. But rather than feeling fitter and stronger and healthier, we built painful bodies. For way too long, I had no idea how to fix my body. I asked every professional that I came into contact with what I could do about my skin issues, my pain, my joint pains, all my health issues, and none of them had an answer for me. All I was ever told was that I needed to learn how to live with whatever problem I was presenting to them. Okay, but here's what's amazing for you guys. There's actually an answer to these painful bodies that we're living in. And the best part, you don't need permission from anyone to make the changes that you need to make to feel amazing again. We own these bodies, so we get to decide what we eat and what we don't eat. We're starting a new journey today, one where we stop being victims of the junk food world that we are surrounded by and start being our own bosses of our own health. We decide what's going on. Now, before we dive in, please remember, I'm sharing what I learned that helped me for your educational purposes. This is not medical advice, and it's not medical advice. Now, there's a giant trap waiting for us the moment we try to step out on our own and take control of things. And if we don't know how to spot this one specific lie that our family, friends, and even our own brains will tell us, we will get pulled right back into the cycle of hunger and joint pain, and so therefore we're stuck again. So I want to look at that first so that you can take your power back. And in order to, you need to understand the normal way of eating is actually a border violation against our health wellness warrior. So let's look at why we apologize for feeling good. We often choose to have joint pain or a foggy brain it could be for hours, it could be for a full week, in order to avoid 30 seconds of awkwardness at a restaurant or a dinner table with friends, right? We think it's rude to say no to bread or cake or cookies or whatever it is. We need to realize that our health matters more than making someone else feel comfortable for 5 minutes. And it's not about the other person. When we say no, people sometimes think we're judging their plate or judging them. We're not. We need to show them that our choice is about fixing our own body. We're not attacking them, right? And I understand this because when I was overweight, I totally thought that everybody was focused on me. Now that I'm not there anymore, I kind of realize nobody cares. Nobody's paying attention to me. But that was the trap that I was stuck in. And so therefore, I didn't want to insult them the way that I would have been insulted. At least I thought I would have been insulted. Now I see it differently. But we need to understand that the words that we speak have so much power. And it's on both sides of the coin. Whether it's someone offering us something and we say no thank you, and they're pushing that envelope and making it sound like, for the words they're saying, that somehow we're making the mistake for saying no thank you. But also the way that I say. So when we tell our friends, I can't have that, I'm on a diet, it sounds like we're being punished. It sounds like we're being restricted. It sounds like we're not getting to have fun. And we say it that way, a lot of us. Well, some of us say it that way because we still believe it, because that's the way we've been programmed for all these years. But some of us say it this way because we feel we need an excuse to give the other person for them to leave us alone. And everybody understands being on a diet, right? So if I say I'm on a diet, they're going to leave me alone. But that's not actually what happens. The actual opposite happens. This makes them want to help us to cheat. Oh, it's okay. It's a party. This one time, right? And they push and we get frustrated. And it honestly it made me, I'll talk about myself for a second. It made me not want to go to events. I didn't want to go out because I knew I'd have all this nya nya nya. And especially when I was doing standard diet, trying to lose weight, I knew I would be tempted and I just needed one person to push a little extra and I was going to eat off plan. At the beginning of my keto lifestyle, I still had that feeling like I'm going to go, they're going to pressure me to, and it took a little while till I realized something. I could change what I'm saying. And that's what I did, Wellness Warrior. Rather than saying, I can't have that, I'm on a diet. What would happen if you just say, I don't eat that? Like, that's a very affirmative, direct thing to, I don't eat that. It sounds like a rule that you made for yourself because you get to decide what you eat. And whether you say, I don't eat it, I don't like it, I don't eat it because it's whatever, I don't eat that. It's harder for people to argue with you telling them that you just don't eat something. It takes away their desire to help you because you don't need help. Oh, you don't eat cookies? Okay, never heard of that before, but okay. You don't like cake? Okay, never heard of that before, but okay. People are allowed to not eat something and not like something, and other people respect it. If you don't like cookies, you're not going to want to taste my homemade special, right? Because I can tell you that if I don't like cookies, whether you homemade them or we get them from the most expensive shop in town, if I don't like cookies, I don't like cookies. Which brings us to another thing that we lean on a lot, that the experts said to do something, right? Because we think that people who've studied stuff, they absolutely know everything about whatever we don't know anything about. And what's interesting about that is that it's not true. First of all, even someone who's an expert doesn't mean that they know about every single thing, right? An expert means that you have knowledge. It doesn't mean that you know everything because the world is still evolving. Now, let me go off on this tangent. What I want us to do is understand that for years, we've listened to the news or health experts who told us what to eat, right? We follow along. This is healthier. This is what's going to heal your body. This is what's going to make you stronger. This is the blah, blah, blah. If any of that was true, our bodies would be stronger. But if our bodies are still in pain, that means the experts were wrong. And this is not the one-off. It's not like one of us is struggling, but most people are doing fine. Most people have either weight to lose, some kind of bodily pain that they're struggling with, some kind of metabolic illness that they're struggling. Most people have something, some kind of skin issue that they're struggling with. So if the common thought process about what's healthy to eat was correct, our young people wouldn't be encountering overweight and obesity younger and younger. And I see toddlers running around, and some of them can't run around because they're obese. How is that possible? Children exercise for a living because play is exercise. They do that for a living, Wellness Warrior. How does it make any sense that we have obese children? And yet we do. We have obese teenagers. So being overweight used to be something that only happened to us in adulthood. Once we settled into our desk jobs and weren't moving around, we have obese children. So we need to fire these experts. And rather than paying attention to the blah, blah, blah that they're saying to us that is clearly not working, we need to let our body and the results we get from eating healthy food, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, for anybody who's new here, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and salt is what's healthy for us to eat. Let our body tell us by how it reacts to eating healthy food. We need to win before we even leave our house, Wellness Warrior. We need to be strong in ourselves. And that means planning for ourselves before we walk out the door, right? Before I go to any event, whether it's at someone's home or it's at a restaurant, I verify with them what's on the menu. How are you cooking it? Now, back in my keto days, I could eat most things that was meat and low carbohydrate vegetables. Fast forward to my today, any event that I'm going at with family members, whatever the main meat that they will be cooking is, my request, can you cook me a piece with just salt? That's my request. When it comes to restaurants, I call ahead. So there's this event happening. Is it possible for me to get my blah, blah, blah cooked this way? If they say yes, I go to the event and I eat. If they say no, I am more than happy to go to the event having eaten before. The same way that we check the weather before we get dressed so that we don't get wet in the rain. Verify the menu, Wellness Warrior, before you go to an event, arrive hungry, and now are frustrated and struggling that you don't have anything to eat and you feel stuck. This is called making sure that you can always take care of you. You don't have to go there hungry. If you've had an amazing meal that you made that has all the healthy ingredients and tasted delicious, then when you arrive at the event, the junk food on the table is not going to have the power over you that it typically has because you're not hungry. And that is one of the most amazing parts of prioritizing your health, prioritizing your mental health and your physical health, because it's torturous going to these events and being hungry because you didn't plan or you didn't ask the questions or you didn't work ahead, right? And then you're there and you're actually hungry. And now you need to watch everybody else eat and there's nothing there for you. The good news about all of this is that you don't need permission to arrive someplace full. You don't need permission to need to eat their food. And when you're there and you're not worried about the food, guess what you get to do? You get to focus on the people. Because keep in mind that we go to events to see our family and our friends. We want to catch up. We want to tell our stories and catch them up. And we can enjoy their company when we go there and we're not worried about eating the garbage that they're serving. We can enjoy their company and be happy to be, well, basically to be around the people we care about rather than being nervous about being around the food. So once we stop saying sorry for wanting to feel good, we finally have the space to heal our bodies. Because the sneaky trap that is happening is there's a healthy food that acts just like junk food in our bodies that people put in front of us. Again, oh, do you want some, right? And they're going to offer it to us. And the worst part is that even in our low carb world, there are still a lot of us that believe that this healthy food is a healthy food, right? But what actually happens when you eat it is it keeps you hungry and it keeps you in pain and you're suffering and you don't even realize it. Because we've been told for our entire lives that fruit is some kind of virtuous, amazing, healthy, full of antioxidants and phytonutrients and all this stuff. But candy is sinful. Candy is that's junk. What we don't realize, Wellness Warrior, is that our liver has no way of reading a food label. It does not see the back of packaging. For my liver, like this stuff, that stuff, and like this thing, for my liver, that is the same as the fructose. So the fructose in this stuff, the fructose in here, it is identical to the fructose in fruit because it is identical. Where do we think they get the fructose that they put in all of these foods from? They get it from vegetation. It is the same fructose. My liver sees sugar whether I eat fruit or I eat candy. Now, most sugar goes into our blood, but fructose, so the sugar found in fruit and vegetables and plant matter, goes straight to our liver. So first I want to pause here and help you to understand something. When in our keto world, we are told that, don't eat bananas and kiwis and, mangoes, but berries are okay. Understand that the same fructose that's in mangoes are in berries. Understand that even if I'm going to make the number really low, even if I'm only getting 3 grams of fructose from that berry, so let's go really low, 3 grams, more than below the number for my day. The problem is, as I learned from Dr. Berry, the glycation factor of fructose is like 7 times the amount than it is for glucose. What does that mean? 1 gram of glucose is a glycation factor of 1. 1 gram of fructose is 7 times the glucose, which means that if we're talking about damage, eating 3 grams of fructose would be like if I had 1 gram. So, sorry, 3 grams of fructose would actually be like 21 grams of glucose, 7 times the glycation, right? 7 times the damage, 7 times the problem. But here's the part that, we don't understand that. So when we are being told, and it's frustrating to me when I have this berries are okay, no, any fructose coming in, we should be concerned about. So since fruit does taste sweet, we need to be very cautious about that because yes, fruits have more fructose than vegetables do. Vegetables still have some fructose, but in dramatically less amounts. But keep in mind, Wellness Warrior, there's even fructose in vegetables. Okay, it's not my point today to tell you to not eat vegetables if you're doing a keto lifestyle. My point today is to help you to aim at the lowest sweet tasting, right? So that the less sweet they taste, the better they are because fructose is lower in the vegetables that taste less sweet. Glucose is going to be in there, but our body is used to glucose. Our body at least will know what to do with glucose. We end up, one of the ways that people can end up with fatty liver is because they are overdoing fructose. Especially when you meet people who are like, I don't know how I ended up with fatty liver. I never drink and da 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 da. Right. It's because of the fructose in the sodas that we drink, in the candies that we eat, even in the foods that we have, because high fructose corn syrup is in a lot of things because it makes things taste better. Okay. I want us to also understand that the fruit that we buy in the store today is not the same kind of fruit that our grandparents were eating back in the day. The fruit today has been bred to be bigger, sweeter, and available all year long. And the fruit today has been bred to be resistant to pests, which means that they don't want bugs eating it. And so they make it, now the way that you make a bug not eat it is by putting something in it that would be harmful to the bug. Bugs are small. So that little bit of toxin for the bug, yeah, it's not gonna eat, those bugs will learn not to eat this fruit. Here's the problem. We are bigger. Doesn't mean that that thing isn't doing anything to us. Yes, it still does something to us. It just means we need to eat more of it before we feel the impact. Some of these skin issues that we seem to be having, some of these internal health issues that we. So again, I think these things are just done, and we just assume that there's no problem eating this stuff. But I want us to understand it's not just the carbohydrate load, although the carbohydrate load is crazy because eating fruit, it's like fruit is like a candy bar growing on a tree. 25 grams of carbohydrate in an apple, Wellness Warrior. When you eat a mango, that like goes up extensively. Like there's so much sugar in the stuff we're eating, and therefore so much fructose in these sweet fruits that our body is struggling. And we don't know why, because the virtuous, healthy fruit that gives us antioxidants and phytonutrient, there can't be that. It's that. Now, there's a hormone in our body. I feel like all I'm doing is just throwing, but like there's a hormone in our body that tells our brain to stop eating when we're full. That is called leptin. Apparently, our body does not react to fructose the same way that it reacts to glucose, and therefore insulin doesn't rise when we eat fructose the way that it would rise when we eat glucose. And so leptin is not triggered by fructose appropriately. So it's not triggered. Like we don't get that signal to stop eating because there's fructose in the system and we overeat. So it's interesting to me because I've heard many people say when you eat sugar, you will end up overeating. And I feel like the nuance that I'm now learning is that if you were to have something that only had glucose in it and it didn't have the fructose, possibly you don't have this problem. So like starches, you might not have this problem. So it's an interesting thing to me. I'm not willing to test it because I care too much about my health, but it's an interesting thing to think about. Like the fact that we can have a meal and get satiated when there's starches, but then if there's enough fructose, we can finish that meal and still want to eat more. I thought that was interesting. Now, our brain needs to get the signal from, so leptin is triggered, we get a signal and it tells us that we've had enough to eat. If our brain doesn't get the signal, it's going to keep telling us you need to eat more, you need to eat more. Sometimes I've met people and I know people in my life and I've met people who complain about this idea that when they are eating, they just like their stomach is so full. It's so full. And they're still hungry. They're uncomfortably full. They stop eating because they're uncomfortable, not because they got a signal that said you had enough. And we don't understand that this is our body screaming at us, right? Because silence we don't take as a problem. But we're supposed to know how much to eat, right? If you think back when our babies were born, they knew when to get off the breast. They didn't just keep eating and eating till they threw up, right? They stopped beforehand. Unless they were on formula. I have watched kids on formula drink excessively and end up throwing up afterwards. I've not had that experience with my daughter. She was breastfed. My nieces and nephew breastfed, but I have known people where their kids would drink formula and then end up like losing it afterwards. So again, we don't look at these things as evidence that there's something going on here. And by the way, for those of you who don't know, check baby formula. It's made from stuff that's fructose is also the sweetest naturally occurring sugar that we know of. And that sweet taste has another negative that it's going to throw on us, right? Because it goes to our reward center and it triggers our brains and it makes us chase because dopamine is released. And you know what happens when you're chasing, right? You're overeating. You are out of control. It feels horrible. Nobody likes it. Nobody likes it. But that's what happens. And that dopamine release is a double-edged sword because it makes us feel good in that moment, but then it leaves us wanting more, right? So we eat the thing. And by the way, dopamine is not just when you eat it, it feels good. There's an anticipatory aspect to it too. So it's getting us from two sides, right? We eat it, so we see it, we want it, we're anticipating it's going to be great. We eat it, ooh, we have more of it released and we feel amazing. And then other chemicals kick in and we have that kind of downward spiral that happens afterwards because dopamine is no longer active. And so then we want more dopamine. So then we have some more. And the chasing leaves us uncomfortable and yet wanting more. And we're uncomfortable because we're mad at ourselves, right? Because we know we're trying to be healthy. We know that we have weight to lose. We know that overeating is not good for us. We know all the things like logically. This is hijacking us emotionally. It's hijacking us in our head, right? This is why just one piece of fruit, right? I'm just gonna have a few grapes can lead us to eating ice cream and cookies. That's why, Wellness Warrior. And for those of us who have chronic pain, fructose is like adding a tiny little drops of gasoline on a fire, right? Because it keeps the inflammation going. Remember, it's glycating 7 times as much as glucose. So fructose is actually worse for inflammation than glucose is. When the liver breaks down fructose, it creates this waste product called uric acid. And even though uric acid is an antioxidant, so good for us, in excess, it becomes a waste product and a problem, right? Because if you have too much of this antioxidant there, one of the ways that antioxidants kind of help us is by creating a bit of like inflammation so that your body can heal and like the right chemicals and processes will start happening in the location where. But if you've just got uric acid floating around with nothing to take care of, yeah, you're going to have swelling in your joints, in your body. You're going to have swelling that shouldn't be happening because it needs to do something. So too much of a good thing becomes a bad thing. And then your joints could, like, I mean, my joints were not doing well, Wellness Warrior. It felt like sharp crystals, right? Like a lot of people who end up with that gout feeling, that crisp, that like scratchy crystal, like, it's horrible. You go to take a step and you're in so much pain, it's horrible, right? So we don't need to eat sugar, whether it's natural or processed. I just want to make sure I'm making myself completely clear here. Our bodies are amazing because they have this terrific ability to make all the sugar that we ever need. They do that by breaking down the healthy fats and proteins that we eat and turn some of it into sugar. And we save it in our muscles. So interestingly, when we have the right sugar being saved in us, often it's being saved in our muscles, right? For quick usage. Those glycogen stores for quick usage, right? So we can take some out and use it and then put some in and whatever. And it's like versus when our body is getting the wrong foods in and is overloaded and it's storing the sugar that's coming in fat storage. And why would it store the sugar that's coming in fat storage? Again, because it makes all the sugar that we need. Any sugar that's coming in is excessive because we make all the sugar that we need. Can I say that enough times? We make all the sugar that we need. When we remove the fruit off of our plates, our taste buds actually change. So that means that when we put fruit and high sugar foods and fun tasting stuff on our plate, our taste buds change. Both directions, we can have a change. Here's what's lovely though: real food like meat, fish, poultry, eggs, with a bit of salt to make it taste delicious and also help us, but I'll talk about that later. That meat, fish, poultry, and eggs starts to taste better, Wellness Warrior. And it tastes better than garbage, right? The dumb stuff we were eating before, the stupidity. When you stop eating these high sugar fruits, when you stop eating high sugar stuff like that, when you stop eating high sugar stuff like this, there's sugar in there. When you stop eating high sugar stuff like this, that's pasta. There's sugar in there. When you put down the high sugar stuff and your mouth can get used to eating real food again, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, your mouth adjusts because your taste buds change. And rather than chasing unhealthy flavors, your mouth resumes being excited for the healthy thing that you're eating. So keep in mind, Wellness Warrior, my mouth cannot be excited about the healthy stuff I eat when it's being overwhelmed by the sugar that's stimulating it and triggering my dopamine system because it's excessive and causing all of the, right? That's what I figured out. As soon as I took the excessive amounts of carbohydrates off my plate, everything changed. And my excessive, constant hunger went away. It was gone. It was amazing. Once we escape the sugar stupidity, our healing, our body really, it picks up in healing. Like the speed at which I went from limping. So for those of you who meeting me for the first time, I started keto because I could barely walk. I had hip pain that doctors were predicting, yes, you're going to have hip surgery at some point. I was 46 years old, 46. And they were saying, yep, you're going to need to have hip surgery. And I was desperate to find an answer. Multiple reasons. First of all, they're telling me I'm going to have hip surgery, but my hip is not bad enough yet. So I couldn't walk without a severe limp. And they were telling me I'm not even a candidate for surgery. So I had to be in more pain than what I was in to qualify for the surgery that I didn't even want. That is what put me on the path to doing a keto lifestyle. Just for context, I had been trying to lose weight, I would say, from the age of 34, 34 to 40. No, I'm wrong. No, maybe it was about that. Yeah, let's say that 34-ish to somewhere in that range. 'Cause my daughter was about 9, so no, whatever is 9 years before that, I was trying to lose weight. Let's just put it like that. So 9 years until the age of, I started keto when I was barely turning 45. So before I was 45. Wellness Warrior. In those 9 years, I did not maintain any kind of weight loss, but also I never improved my health. My health did not significantly improve. I would lose a bit of weight and I would put that back more than what I lost, and then I would lose a little bit of weight and then I put back more than what I lost. And this was the stupid cycle that I was in over and over and over. Lose a little, put it back, lose a little, and every time I put back what I lost plus a bit more. My point, when we eat healthy, the healing speeds up. Your body wants to be healthy. I started the diet, and 3 months later, my joint pain was gone. It was gone. Not just my hip. I had knee pain. I had shoulder pain. I had back pain. I had what they were telling me was tennis elbow, was not tennis elbow. Almost I had a stiff neck that for months I couldn't turn my head. That I healed it. My neck was turning before I started keto, but I went through months of not being able to turn my neck. All of my joint pains gone because I did keto for and it was less than 3 months. I don't know the exact date, but it was at around 3 months that I noticed it because my spouse asked me a question. Wellness warrior, I had no idea that the food I was eating was causing the level of discomfort that I was walking around with, or I would have changed the food years before. Our joints feel better when we eat right. Our brain fog lifts when we eat right. I lost, so it took me 3 months to get my physical health back. By 5 months, is that right? Yeah, like I want to say 5 months. If I'm wrong, I'll correct myself later, but I believe it was 5 months because April, it's either five, somewhere between 5 and 7 months. I'm not remembering the date right now because I don't have the date in front of me, but let's say 7 months to be safe. 80 pounds lost. 80 pounds lost. Does that sound good to you? That, well, for me, 80 pounds lost equaled at goal weight. That's what 80 pounds lost equaled to me. Something that I had been trying to accomplish for 9 years, accomplished in a mere 7 months, we'll call it. And here's what's even better about that, Wellness Warrior. I've maintained that weight loss now going on 8 years. It will be 8 years in April, this coming April. How amazing is that? I was never able to keep weight off for more than 6 months. That was the longest stretch I ever did, was 6 months. Now I'd kept it off for 8 years. You know what's stupid about all of that? When you lose weight, when you're feeling better, when you no more pain in your body, when you're thinking clearly, that's when our friends are going to start acting like unpaid agents for the food companies and try to talk us into cheating, right? They don't want us to feel left out. And they're going to encourage us to find balance, right? There has to be a way that you can balance, maintaining your weight loss and eating fun stuff and going out and partying and whatever, right? Balance is a lie that keeps us stuck in a painful body. It's a lie. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing as balance because plants are not human food, right? They're not food for us. Almost all junk food is made of things that come from plants, whether it's the sugar in it, the flour in it, or the seed oils, or a combination of all three. Our human biology is designed to run on animal fats and proteins, not plant-based materials. You, if you put diesel in a like a gasoline car, the car would break down. And it wouldn't be because the car's not good. It wouldn't be because the car's weak. It'd be because you put the wrong fuel in the car, right? Junk food is like us putting diesel in our gasoline body. That's what junk food is. When we eat plant-based junk stupidity, our body is seeing that incoming food as an attack on our structure, not a meal, right? Because everything we eat is supposed to be there to create structure. We are eating the building blocks of our body. Our body is made from animal protein, animal fat. And we're eating sugar. We're trying to build ourselves on plant protein. Another thing I don't understand, plant protein. We're replacing the healthy animal fats. So lard, tallow, butter. We're replacing these things with olive oil and avocado oil and coconut oil. Those are plant-based fats and therefore not the same as what our body is looking for. Our body has to work extra hard to get rid of the toxins and anti-nutrients that come in when we eat plant-based anything, right? Fruits and vegetables, let me be clear. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, legumes, right? The leafy greens, all of these things are plant-based foods. And then when we turn them into this stuff, it's still plant-based foods. When we make, this stuff, so these protein bars, even when they say keto friendly on them, they're not made out of what our body is looking for. This extra work actually causes inflammation and therefore was contributing to my joint pain, possibly to yours, contributing to our weight because some of my weight was water weight from all the inflammation that my body had. Like there's so much, Wellness Warrior, that we just either we're not made aware of it or we don't understand the actual implications of it. We've all heard that high fructose corn syrup is bad for us, but then we ignore that the fruit sugar that's making the fruit taste so amazing is fructose. So this idea that we could moderate is a chemical error, right? It's an error in chemistry. We cannot moderate a toxin. Let's be very clear about that. Because it would be like you trying to have balance between your delicious clean glass of water and just that 1 tablespoon of mud that someone stirred into it. Can we find the right balance so that we drink that and it tastes good to it? No. No, you drink that, it's going to taste horrible. It's going to be putting dirt inside of you. Why would we want to do that? There's no way to moderate that. There's no good balance of like how much dirt is the right amount of dirt. No. Since plant-based garbage is not biologically compatible with building a healthy version of us, there's no safe amount of it. Because every single time you eat something, vegetation, some kind of vegetation, any kind of fruit, vegetable, nut, seed, any of those things, when you eat them, your body took it in and now needs to do something with that. Some of it is going to be used to build you, because if that's the only oil you're ever giving it, right? If you're eating lots of vegetables and lots of fruits and you're taking all the fat off your meat if you eat them, or heaven forbid if you're not eating meat at all, the little bit of fat that's coming in, if it's coming from seed oils, that is what your body's building you with. The little bit of oil that's coming in, if it's coming from like avocado or coconut, or if you're getting more avocado, coconut, or olive oil than you are getting actual animal-based oils, lard, tallow, the meat, fat that you should be eating, then what's happening there, Wellness Warrior, is that you're giving your body plant-based stuff to build you with. The structure of these oils are not the same. And this mistake that we're making becomes even more important when we are trying to heal our body. Your body wants to do repairs. It wants to clean up any problems that were happening inside of you when you were overeating carbohydrates, for all of you who have done the great job of bringing your carbohydrates down. And now we need to focus our energy on making sure we give our body the best quality stuff we can give it. That means that even one bite of junk food will still trigger the chemical reaction, first of all, in my brain, because it's going to wake up that, right? That woohoo, that chasing that happens in that. And I'm going to, oh yeah, right. And my dopamine anticipation of go get more is going to turn back on and we're chasing again. And then it tells our body to stop burning fat. That's the other thing that happens, right? Too much sugar coming in means that we are now in fat storage mode, and our body's going to store any energy that comes in because high sugar came in, right? That's happening because of one bite of anything. Why? Because your body makes all the sugar that you ever need. When you take some in, you are telling your body, problem. And this is a biological law that we do not have the ability to control. You can't tell your body to stop doing it. So, how about we learn to understand it and respect it, and then we will be able to finally do the good job of eating accordingly. I want to get back to satiety for a minute. When we eat plants, our body, like, it stays hungry because it's still searching for the animal nutrients it actually needs. So we can find ourselves eating a lot of food and then we're still hungry. So we end up buying so much more food because we think we need to keep not just meals, but snacks and like all this stuff, these extras that we buy because we are afraid to be hungry because we actually feel hungry because our body is saying, hey, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and some salt. Can we have some of that? And we keep giving it rice and potatoes and apples and bananas and nuts and pumpkin seeds and all kinds of stuff that it doesn't want. Granola bars. I used to eat so many granola bars thinking that they were healthy snacks, not realizing that they were actually what was making me hungry. Diet soda, another thing that makes us chase and makes us hungry because even though there's no sugar coming in, the dopamine center of your reward center of your brain gets triggered because you tasted sweet. It happens immediately. So we end up buying all this stuff. This doesn't just impact our body, Wellness Warrior. It impacts our wallet. When we give our body exactly what it wants, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and a bit of salt, and well, not even a bit of salt, as much salt as your body is asking you for is what I've learned from Dr. Barry. I should be getting. I used to keep my salt medium even when I was doing keto until I watched that video from Dr. Barry and he said, if your food doesn't taste salted enough to you, it's because your body is asking you for more. So I was like, again, after learning everything that I learned, how did I not even click into that? And yet it took me someone saying it out loud. So that's why I'm saying all this stuff out loud for me to click in that if your body is asking you for something, you're trying to give it. If it's not working out, first of all, look at what you're giving it and adjust accordingly. If we feed our body meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and salt in the appropriate amounts, our body stops screaming for more food. Our brain is no longer sending us out chasing. It has what it needs, and we get to move on. So we spend less money because real food is actually more efficient to our body. I've been able to consistently eat a pound of meat per day or poultry per day, so a meat or poultry, for $3.73 USD per day. $3.73. That is amazing, Wellness Warrior. I was spending much more on my groceries before I started doing, well, I'm currently carnivore. So I'm just talking about what I currently eat today. If this would have been back when I was doing keto, it probably would have been more like maybe closer to $5. No, not even. I would say $4 USD because I would have been having avocado once a week and I would have been having olives and cheese once a week. Again, even when I was doing keto, my vegetation intake was super low because I understood the problem. But even if it was costing me $7 a day, it's so far away from what it was costing me when I was doing standard American diet. Oh my goodness, like if easily I was doing 20-ish dollars a day eating. Easily. Between the cereals and the the lunches and the salads and the all the things, the vegetation, first of all, that I bought that I didn't end up eating because whenever I was trying to be healthy, I would force myself to buy fruit. I don't like fruit, then I would end up throwing it away because it spoils in the fridge because I don't eat it fast enough. And but even if we just talk about when I wasn't trying to be good, I was still in the 20s of dollars trying to eat because I was constantly hungry. And I wouldn't have one granola bar, I'd probably have two. And so like all of these things add up, Wellness Warrior. And if I was out and about because I worked and I needed to and I felt hungry, I would stop and buy something. All of these things add up. And we don't often take the time when we're doing our finances to even look at all the little things I bought throughout the day. We don't count those in our budget. But if you count all that stuff, it's all things that you're eating harming your body, and you're eating it trying to be satiated. We want to use that animal protein to build and repair our body efficiently. So if you decide today to be the boss of your health, that means that you're realizing that there's no missing out in the story, right? It's not, I don't want to eat junk food. There's no desire for me to eat junk food. Why? Because that junk food kept me in pain. That junk food kept me obese. I was actually clinically obese. Like that was a hard pill for me to swallow, by the way. Can I just point that out? When I stepped on the scale and did my BMI and realized, holy moly, I'm in that obese range. Like I honestly couldn't even say it before. I couldn't say the words. It hurt so bad to know that that was my reality. And at the same time, today, it feels great knowing that not only did I fix it, I'm committed to staying here because I love how I feel. I love that I'm doing activities again. So, like, you refusing to put the wrong materials in your body is not a failure. I wanted you to understand that. Every time we choose real animal, like so meat, fish, protein, eggs, our body is getting exactly what it's supposed to get because it matches the chemistry that it's supposed to get. And we are able to fix the 40 years. In my case, it was 46 years. In your case, it might be 50, it might be 30, it might be 20, it might be however long you've been eating real whole foods, that amount of years of damage. So, sorry, however long you've been eating like food, not just breast milk. So, when you were put on solid food, what I meant solid foods, that's how many years of damage that you're correcting when you switch over to real whole food, meat, fish, poultry, egg, salt. So when we see that junk food isn't even food, right? This is not food. Like this stuff is not food. When we understand that, it becomes so much easier to walk away, right? There's no feelings of missing out because I'm not missing out on anything. I feel better today. I have more fun today. And rather than feeling like I'm missing out, I honestly just feel like I'm being smart, right? But I need you to understand that even after I realized that sugar was a problem, I still remember being confused about what I should eat, right? Like, what is healthy? So, what we need to do is take the look at the healthiest building materials that we can put in our body that end hunger and cravings. And if you're wondering what else I could be talking about, don't worry, I've been talking about it this entire time. Animal fats and animal protein are exactly what our cells are made of. When we eat them, it's not like trying to force a square peg into a round hole, right? It's a perfect chemical match. So it's like if the bricks just snap into place to repair our bodies. Like we're making a house out of Legos, right? Every block just fits because they're made to fit. That's what they do. Legos just fit together. And it works. Our bodies don't have to work hard or fight against toxins to get the nutrients out of the meat and eggs. It is the most efficient fuel on the planet, right? Meat, fish, poultry, eggs. That is what's efficient and healthy for human beings to eat. It's why we stop being hungry. And I'm sure that any of you have ever talked to people who did keto or carnivore, and they talk about how the just like that feeling of constant hunger goes away. And for the people who do keto or carnivore and stay committed and don't allow the foolishness back on their plate, when you stay the course and realize that you feel amazing, that chasing of food doesn't come back. When our body gets the animal fats it needs, it sends a signal to our brain that says, we're safe, we're full, you can stop searching for food now. That's an amazing feeling. I love that feeling, being free of the constant thoughts of food. I love that part. But what's really crazy was learning that food companies and pharma companies were connected. So, and I only learned this through this process of learning about keto and carnivore. And I didn't realize that there were big companies that under them, so big food companies that under them had pharmaceutical companies. That kind of blew my mind. It isn't just about keeping us hungry and overeating so that we buy more of this stuff. It's actually trickier things. Like they tell us that salt is bad, for example. Let me just use an example, a real life example. But our heart, our brain, like all of our muscles, like all of the talking, the communication that happens in our bodies are sent through electrical signals and therefore requires what? Salt. It is actually necessary for the electricity circuitry that keeps everything running that we have salt. So there's so many people that start keto or carnivore and they feel tired, exhausted. And they think, oh, because I need carbohydrates. That's why I'm having such a struggle. Guess what? That ain't it. It's because you're not having enough salt. What we don't realize is how much salt is actually in stuff like this. There is so much salt in these things, stuff like this. There is so much salt in these things, in the garbage that they tell us to eat, that our circuitry does keep moving forward, but in this tricky way, right? So if you watch my video about iodine, we accidentally get enough iodine because they clean machinery with it, the machinery that makes our food. So we accidentally get some iodine. And now I'm realizing that we accidentally get salt because they throw the salt in the food to make it taste delicious. But it's because if they didn't over salt and over sugar this stuff, according to Michael Moss, we would put it in our mouth and spit it out and never touch this garbage again. Yeah, because apparently without that right combination of salt, sugar, fat, so that bliss point that they aim at, if it wasn't for that, this stuff would be stuff to you. It would be inedible. You'd be like, why would I put this garbage in my mouth, right? Because it is actually garbage. It's garbage. But because they zhuzh it up with some salt, sugar, and fat, and not even the good fat, it's the seed oils, but it tastes right. It tastes great, and we end up eating it. When you eat real food, you actually need to add the salt and not the little sprinkle that you were adding before and your body's going to feel amazing because you're getting all your salt from that stuff. No, you have to add actual salt, enough that it tastes good to you so that your body can run properly. When you're actually deciding everything, when you're running the show, when you making all the decisions, make sure your body gets enough minerals to feel energized, or else you will feel drained. You will feel exhausted. You won't do well. By eating meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and salt, we stop the fire of inflammation that was happening in our bodies so that we aren't just losing weight, Wellness Warrior. We're building the bodies that we've wanted to be living in this entire time. Bodies that can move, brains that think well, and we get to live without being in constant pain. Like, because that part sucks. Let me just tell you, well, okay, I had 23 years of joint pain, but that 8 months of excruciating, if I'm standing, my hip hurts. If I'm sitting, my hip hurts. If I'm laying down, my hip hurts. There was no position that I could be in where my hip wasn't hurting. For that 8 months of just, I hate this, I would never go back to eating not only processed stupidity, which I have on my desk here, because it's so processed, it doesn't even spoil, which drives me nuts, but whatever. It sits there. But I wouldn't go back to eating fruits or vegetables either, because I now understand the contribution that all vegetation made to my not feeling well. During my keto years, I figured out that even a small bite of tomato sent my joint pain off the charts because I have a problem with nightshades. There's so many things that we don't understand, that the people working in the factories and the food companies in their chemical labs understand. They understand it, but we don't understand. But I want you to understand, so I keep talking about this stuff, because every meal that you have is a choice. And you're either building a house, a house that stands strong, or you're building a house that's falling apart, Wellness Warrior. I want you to choose your materials wisely, because as you eat them, it's building. And then because it takes 20-ish years to completely rebuild one of these, every time I eat something fun, every time I allow myself to cheat, every time I do this thing that's against my good health, that's a meal, that's a snack, that's a whatever that just got built into me, that it will possibly take 20 years, right? Where did it get built? Right? Where did my body put that stuff that I just ate? And now I have another 20 years to get rid of that piece of junk. Today, we're going to end all the guilt so that we can start healing. You don't have to beg to eat healthy. You don't need to be embarrassed for wanting to know the menu that your friend's party is having, or the menu that's at the restaurant. You don't need to be feeling guilty because you get to the restaurant and you ask them to make adjustments for your good health. We need to stop apologizing to anyone about what we do for our good health, because you have the right to want to eat healthy, and because you're the boss, you get to decide that you will eat healthy. And I want you to let that sink in, Wellness Warrior. You are the boss. You get to decide what you eat. So now that you know that you're the one who makes all the decisions, if you happen to be struggling with that constant food noise still, if the craving still kind of gets you once in a while for junk food and garbage, you need to watch the video that I linked in the description below, Silencing the Food Noise, because in that video, I show you exactly how to turn that noise off. And, the signals will be gone and you can get on with your life. And you need to watch that after the Q&A, because we're going to do Q&A right now. So let's focus our attention over here, Wellness Warrior. I am so ecstatic to see that there is already some questions in the chat. However, please, if you have something you want to ask me, this is the time to get it in. I'm going to run through these and then I will go and get ready for work. So thank you TL is great. Thank you for joining and waving me a hello. Nice to have you here. Good morning to Mickey. Nice to have you here. I have another hello from Ann Webster. Like I said, if you have some questions, I would love to go through them. And Sing It is saying hello. Sing It, nice to have you here. Always happy to see you in the comments. I have some new names today, and so I'm happy to meet all of you. And then we have uh, David C. Black saying we need to be careful when evaluating keto and changes. Unless you're measuring, you might not realize what's going on. I totally agree with that. I think that there's a lot of people that because keto is presented as so easy to do, we think that, oh, if I just, eat less of everything, that I'm going to do well. So there's two things I want to point out here. It is not as simple as we think it is to get down to 20 grams of carbs or less. And by the way, keto definition is 50 grams of carbs or less. I always say 20 because Dr. Westman, who was the person I learned my first initial keto information from, that white coat video that he has, that's explained how to do keto. In that video, Dr. Westman said that although keto is 50 grams of carbs or less, in order for the average person who has metabolic issues to be able to get into a ketogenic state, he has found with all the testing that he's done and working with people that you need to be 20 grams of carbs or less. And the big thing that I learned when I tried to get myself down to 20 grams of carbs or less, which at the very beginning I did not have a food scale, was that when you think that you've done it, chances are very good you haven't done it. And so when I got my food scale and I actually started to use the food scale to input like what I actually had on my plate, and that was well, I'll talk about that in a second, but that's the other thing to pay attention to. I realized that I was around 70 grams of carbs per day. So I was not in a ketogenic state, even though I had lost weight. The positive thing is that when you're doing like 400 grams of carbs per day, and then you end up down to like 70, of course you're going to lose weight. But the issue isn't that. The issue is if you're not actually in a ketogenic state, the cravings are still going to be there. The chasing is still going to be happening because you have enough carbohydrate coming in to keep you craving and keep you chasing. One of the things I learned from Dr. Westman, I believe it was Dr. Westman that taught me this, was that you should weigh the food before you eat it, first of all, because if you weigh it, if you try to if you try to eat the food and then kind of guesstimate what you had, you're never going to put in the right numbers. So I always, when I was doing keto, I would put my plate, I would put the stuff on the plate, and as I was putting it on, I would see how much each thing weighed. So I would, zero out the calculator, put on my vegetation, and then I would see like, well, if it was broccoli, how much broccoli did I put? And I would put it in the calculator to see how much carbohydrate it was. And because I haven't eaten any of it yet. So I actually do this into the calculator. There's a point I'm making. It's not just about weighing it. Because if you weigh it, but you don't put it in the calculator, you won't get the understanding of whether you've gone over or not. And that was the piece of puzzle that I didn't understand because I was weighing everything and I was writing it down and then I would go eat supper and then I would check it after. And yeah, that left some room for improvement. And it just took me one time of doing it that way to realize, okay, that doesn't make sense. And then the next day I started to weigh it first so I could take things off my plate if I had too much carb. The second thing I will say about weighing things is that it was only because I was weighing my food and understanding how much carbohydrate theoretically was on my plate. And I say theoretically because Dr. Hampton helped me to understand that when we weigh an apple, we get a weight and then they have a standard, oh, this much sugar in this weight of apple. It's not taking into consideration if there was a drought this year or if there was a nice rainy, sunny season for the apple, for the tree. And so therefore the apple might have more sugar in it or less sugar in it, but depending on. So Dr. Hampton helped me to see that even those numbers are guesses, which reinforce what Dr. Westman had told me, which was keep your carbohydrates as low as possible. It's not about getting to 20. It's 20 grams of carbs or less per day. So my life experience played this out. When I was doing keto and I was doing 20 grams, anytime I got like past 18, I started having joint pain again. I started feeling bad again. And eventually I realized that my tip top number was actually 18. Like if I got to 18 or more, I was in trouble. And so therefore, from that day forward, which is why my food started looking different, I went to 10 grams of carbs or less because I made that decision. Some days I just wouldn't even have carb because I'm like, I don't want to have pain. And so eventually what ended up happening was I chose one or two things that I like to have, which was broccoli, avocado, olives. They were low glycemic. I didn't mind cooking the broccoli. Avocado, you don't have to cook. Olives, you don't have to cook. So it was like one day a week that I had to cook. And eventually the broccoli got left behind because I don't like cooking. And so all I needed to do was cook my meat, and I left the broccoli off. And life just became simple for me. And that's part of the reason that my carb counts were so nicely low, and I was able to really heal myself even more past the weight loss, right? Because the weight loss happened after, I want to say 7 months, 5 months. I can't remember right now. I'm going to probably update this at some point, but like the weight loss happened, but I still had like, losing weight doesn't mean that your body is healed, wellness warrior. There are a lot of thin people with metabolic problems. There are a lot of thin people with skin issues and and all kinds of health issues. Diabetic, thin people. So it's not because you're thin that means that your body is healthy again. And that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I want us all to understand. I use Keto Mojo, no affiliation, just a user, accurate blood glucose and ketone levels. Also allow time to evaluate changes, 30 to 90 days. One of the things that I want to also point out, and like I do love testing and tracking numbers and people understanding things, but I've also learned from the doctors that I watch that once your body adapts, then the numbers start to look a little different. And it's, I would love people to be able to pay attention not just to the numbers that we gather because they're important, but also to how you feel, right? I think that sometimes, um, like at the very beginning, having a great understanding of what I needed to eat and what I needed to weigh, and like, so I was weighing my stuff. I never tested my ketones until much later, just because I was curious, and and no surprise, I was in the zone and whatever. But what I want to point out is if I can from day to day look at the food that I'm about to eat and understand clearly by looking at it, plant matter, chances are X, animal matter, chances are Y, right? If I know what plant matter potentially harmful can happen, animal matter, what potentially good can happen, then my ability to make good decisions for myself without needing to pull out an app and start doing calculations increases. That all being said, we need the apps and we need the help, especially when we're at restaurants and whatever, to be able to make decisions, especially if you're keto, to make decisions. On my carnivore way of eating, Pat and I have made decisions that we will go to more expensive restaurants because we know that when we say we want it cooked like that, they will cook it like that. That being said, not everybody's in the same situation that we are in, right? And we don't go out to eat much. That's the other part that makes it easier for us to do that. On the twice a year that we're going to go to a restaurant, a fancy restaurant, to do our anniversary or other or and also Valentine's Day whatever's, versus our weekly date is a really moderate restaurant where we've just had a lot of conversations with the chef. We go there every other week. They know us. They know what they can put and what not to put. And they just make the meal because we are such good customers. They're happy to have us back. They make the little tweaks so that we keep coming back. So I definitely think that taking the time to understand the food you're eating so that you can look at it and make a good decision matters so much more than relying on devices. That all being said, when I was doing keto, I often would reweigh things just to be sure that what I think I'm putting on my plate is what I'm putting on my plate. And for the most part, until I started to do avocado and olives only, and I wasn't putting vegetate like so I wasn't putting broccoli or cauliflower, those kind of like low glycemic vegetables on my plate. As soon as I switched to avocado and olives, there was no more reason to weigh because I was eating one avocado, or I think I was having like 12 olives. That was the meal. And it didn't vary. So if in today's 12 olives I had a little bit more carb or a little bit less carb, that's the deal. That's what it is. And I was comfortable with that because for both of those things, it was falling well within my 10 grams of carbs per day. So there was no fear of going over. When I switched to carnivore, the fear is even less. So I hope that that answers the question and like clarifies some of the way that I think about these things. Continuous glucose monitors helps a lot if you can afford. Yeah, that I did try the continuous glucose monitor. That was the one thing that I did try. I wanted to see what kind of information it would give me. I will say that I was a bit annoyed that it fell off before the time was over, but that's fine. I was able to get a lot of interesting data and I used the data and that was it, like to help myself understand some stuff. One thing that I will say, again, I want us, and the whole point of like today's video of being the boss, of like controlling your destiny, of being in control, I want us to really start focusing on the idea that I want to understand how whatever I'm eating, whatever I'm putting in my body impacts my body. There are a lot of people that their doctors say, well, now you need this medication, and they just take the medication without ever verifying what that medication would do to them. And I've actually known a few different people that when they went and verified certain things about their medication, realized that that medication would have been hella harmful to them. I'm one of those people because when I was in my teen years, I had blood work that showed that I was anemic. Right away, the doctor first was saying, well, feed this kid more beef, which my parents did, and I struggled like you can't imagine with that beef. And by eating the extra beef, my body didn't feel great. But in the end, I got switched to iron pills because eating the extra beef didn't help. I took the iron pills and I felt so sick. It was ridiculous how sick I felt. And when my parents called the doctor to say, she took the medication, she's not feeling well, doctor actually said it's not possible. Impossible. Iron pills don't do that. So my parents were like, well, you guess you need to keep taking it. And I was like, yeah, no. But they didn't know that. I didn't tell them that. But I just like stopped taking them. I would pretend to take it, walk and throw it in the garbage, and I just didn't take it. And of course, when I got back to the doctor, and obviously I wasn't taking it, I was in a bunch of trouble. But at the end of the day, they realized if we can't force her to take it, she's gonna keep throwing it away, like whatever. Because I was willing to do the grounding, I wasn't taking it. In the end, it turns out that my thalassemia is the reason that I show as anemic. And I only found that out when I was in my 30s and had my daughter. But Wellness Warrior, can we just understand that if I would not have like thought for myself and said, this is making me feel awful, I'm not taking it. What I learned from the doctors that told me I had thalassemia, when they said, oh, so you should avoid blood, and one of the things they said is any medication that has iron in it. And I told them what happened to me. They were like, yeah, that could have been really bad. It probably could have harmed you internally in bad ways. All that to say, we are so focused on external telling us what's good for us. And I want us to learn to also just believe what the signals your body is giving you. If your body is giving you rashes, if your body is making you nauseous, if your body is giving you headaches, if you're feeling poorly, if your weight is rising, PCOS and all these, if things are going wrong, please try your best to listen to your body, because your body is trying to give you a sign something needs to change. Hey, Pat, I'm glad that you were able to say hello. Liza Walk, hello, another new name for me. Hi, nice to have you here. Thank you for the insight. I'm so happy to be insightful. Heidi B. Mary, again, thank you for being here. I see, like, I'm happy that you find this information helpful. So how I'm going to take that emoji. I want to get this. I want. I want to get to this point. You want to get to the point where I am. So this is Demetria Clayton. You want to get to the point. I'm assuming you mean where you can feel in control, where you can eat what's healthy, where you can like do what's good for yourself every day. And the way that we get there is by deciding. I really can't say that enough. When we, like, think about your job. I was a psychologist because I took a decision to become one. But that decision happened when I was like 7 or 8 years old. I saw someone on television doing the job, and I was like, that's amazing. You could just talk to people and help people and blah, blah, blah. And I decided to become one. You get to be whoever you want to be. And I wanted to be healthy. I saw the path. If you understood the uphill battle I had to fight with my partner, Pat, he did not want me doing this. He's like, this sounds like a recipe for a heart attack. This sounds like a that was when I was doing keto. It sounds like he was like just not on board. He's like, you go see a nutritionist. Nutritionists all tell us the same data. Eat less, move more, blah, 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 which I had done a bunch of times. So the uphill battle of him like not being sure about what I was doing, of me trying to learn how to cook differently. Although my dad was really helpful with that because he just told me some recipes that he basically said, cook whatever you like and use the spices that you're already using that you like. And he's just like, you're not having the rice on your plate. You're just putting spices in and he made it really simple for me. So I do appreciate my father for that. And honestly, I don't think he was concerned. Do I think he thought that I would have done the diet for as long as I did? Probably not. So I don't think he was concerned because he probably just, there's another diet she's trying, because wellness for life. When I tell you that I had tried to lose weight so many times, I'm not playing around with you. I had tried to lose weight so many times. But it was an uphill battle for me. But as soon as I decided I'm going to do this diet, that was it. I was doing the diet. As I did the diet, and I was lucky, I had a nice mix of influencers and doctors that I was listening to. I lean towards the medical because with my science background, I like the medical. I like understanding why something is what it is. But I liked hearing people just talk about the psychologist in me. I liked hearing people talk about their experience. People talk about their life, talk about how things got to be where they were for them. I liked both sides of the puzzle. Because of that, I do think that it helped me to see both sides of the coin. So when I found the medical that was saying, so the keto and carnivore doctors that were saying that whatever you do to lose weight is what you will have to do to keep the weight off. Dr. Fung was very strong in my mind for saying that when he was talking about how people on a standard diet who do restrictions, you're restricting, your body is not feeding the right amount. So your body is not getting the right amount of good, healthy stuff. Even in this restriction, you are hungry, you are chasing, you are like, so basically you're fighting with yourself. Because of that, what ends up happening is we end up in the bad story, the very, very, very bad story of needing to go and like we end up needing to get more food in, but we're on a restriction diet, so we can't get more food in. And so we just suffer for months on end. And of course, what Dr. Fung helped me to understand is that our bodies will adjust. So when your body adjusts, and so let's say you were doing a 300 calorie restriction to lose weight, or 500, however much you decide to take off, and then 6 months later, your body will have normalized and said, okay, this is how much food we're getting now. It would adjust everything and say, okay, we can survive on let's say you went from 1800 to 1500 we can adjust, we can live on 1800 calories. And now weight loss just stops. It's adjusted everything, it's recalibrated, we are good to go. Dr. Fung helped me to understand that it's because you're not bringing in enough energy to fuel your body. So it's not, and to build your body. It's not able to do any repairs because all it's doing is managing the crisis of not enough food energy coming in. Because keep in mind, in order to make that reduction, most people pull the meat off their plate, right? You're eating even leaner meats, or you're eating less meat, and you're keeping the vegetation because that's what allows you to physically feel full. It's the reverse for our body. Our body wants you to eat the healthy stuff. Even if that healthy stuff would not make you physically feel full, if you took the vegetation off your plate, that same amount of meat would take you much further. This is what we don't understand. This is what we get confused on, because nutrient-dense real food, if it's eaten by itself, is what our body's looking for. It's what our body was waiting for. It was never wanting the side dishes. It doesn't even want the spice, except for salt. It wants the salt. It wants the salt. But the other spice, it doesn't even want it. All it wants is the building blocks so that it can actually build and repair itself. So the best thing you can do, Demetria, if you want to get to a better place with yourself, is understand what Dr. Fung taught me. If we eat garbage, our body puts all of that energy that it can't use to build us properly in storage. It uses bits and pieces of whatever protein comes in to kind of try to keep things afloat, but it's not doing, that's another problem that Dr. Fung helped me to understand, is that when we're processing food, the amount of repair that's happening is not even what it could be. Versus when we are eating once, maybe twice a day, and letting ourselves have a nice 16 to 23 hour eating windows, like if or not eating window, right? So if our eating window is somewhere between 1 hour and 6 hours, something like that, when we do that, our body has 18 to 23 hours that it actually can repair us. Well, it's less than that. It's probably going to be, because it takes like about an hour or two for our food to get to where, so yeah, it's a little bit less than that. But it will have a good, maybe 16 to 21 hours that it can be repairing us. And Dr. Ekberg helped me to understand that your body is a workhorse, and it will get done in that time a lot. And if we give it that time every single day, amazing. But some of us, even by giving it that time once or twice a week, can get a lot of repair done. But it's the consistency that matters. Not only the consistency, let me be clear, it's the consistency in giving it the time to repair, and the consistency of eating healthy. And what I want you to think about this is like, if I have a professional cleaning crew come in and clean up my house, and then I live in the house normally, I probably could get away with having that crew come in every other week. But if I have a professional cleaning crew come in my house, live in my house normally for a day, or maybe even till the weekend, but then on the weekend I throw a party, I'll need the crew to come back on Monday. So I won't be able to make the 2 weeks, right? Now, if I end up throwing a party, but because I threw a party, so throwing a party is eating garbage, I'm now chasing. Even if I have the crew come back on Monday, if I'm chasing and end up having another party on Wednesday, They have to come back on Thursday. And now do you see where the crew will not be able to keep up? Especially if I can't afford to keep paying them. If I can afford once every 2 weeks, but I can't afford for them to come every few days, my house is going to become a disaster. And that we need to understand, Wellness Warrior, is that if you were having a party every single day, even though you're giving yourself that 18 hours to repair, if your body is having to deal with garbage when you break your fast, right? So if you're eating junk food, when you break your fast, you're bringing in a party rather than going back to living normally. I encourage everyone, if you are going to eat healthy, eat healthy. If you are going to fast, when you break your fast, break it with healthy foods. And by the way, you shouldn't just be fasting without knowing how your body reacts. Any person who fasts should start off slowly, like just, 24 hours maximum. And then you should still refeed with very soft, delicate things, because refeed syndrome is a real thing. People have had issues with their health because they didn't respect that refeed syndrome is a real thing. So I really hope that answer, although it was a bit of a tangent slash rant slash, I'm not really sure, but I want everyone to do well. I want everyone to do well. And it frustrates me that we get such bad information from people who seem like they want to do well, but I think that when influencers, and I will say some doctors, I've say both sides of the coin, influencers or doctors, there are some doctors that do it too, when they start making money from YouTube, like all sense of like what's good for the viewer goes out the window. And it frustrates me because there are a lot of people that I watched religiously and then I had to stop watching because it's like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And it just, the talk was not making sense. And it didn't seem like the goal was to help me anymore, right? It didn't seem like the goal when it came to influence was to inspire me anymore. It was about the drama cycles that was happening in their lives because that was getting views, that was getting comments, that was getting engagement. But that's not helping people. All it's doing is making people believe that keto is just, or carnivore is just so hard that nobody, look at these people that they were so gung-ho on it and now look at their life is up and no. The truth is that if you want to be in the position that I'm talking about, it's about deciding that you're going to eat healthy and then creating the story for yourself where you plan ahead. And whether that's planning ahead, what am I eating this week? Or it's planning ahead, oh, there's a party coming up. What am I eating at the party? Plan ahead so that you can actually live the life you want to live and eat the way that you're telling yourself you want to eat. Long answer. Lambs, hello. Nice to have you in here. I appreciate you. K-Day says, hi, Miss Violet. I'm full carnivore going on 40 days. I love it. I love it. I love it. My last problem is organic coffee with 1.5 cups of organic heavy cream. Okay, I maybe multiple times a day. Okay, maybe I've stalled since I've been drinking this. Do you think my insulin resistance will eventually balance where I'll be able to start losing again? Or this is just too many calories to lose weight? First of all, calories are not a thing. Our body does not understand calories. It doesn't read calories. This is not about calories. It's about casomorphin, which would be the protein, part of a protein breakdown process that will happen because of dairy that is causing you to chase. And so my first thing to you is, rather than having, but how much did you say you're having? 1.5 cups of organic heavy cream. I'm not sure what makes heavy cream organic or not. So I'll say that right away. And I usually see organic as a marketing term. That doesn't mean much, at least not to me. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, K-Day, is to make a plan and then stick to the plan. So you're telling me you have 1.5 cups of organic heavy cream in your coffee. So you're having coffee flavored or heavy cream is really what you're having. And my suggestion to you is to think about the fact that even if you were, like, let's say you never started keto, there's no way that you would have been having that much heavy cream in your coffee. So, how about we go back to making coffee? So you have a cup and a half of organic heavy cream. My suggestion would be make your coffee. So, like, whatever, what is the coffee that you're making? And I would take 1 cup of heavy cream and I would put a half cup of water. And I would start there. And I would drink that until that felt fine to me. It doesn't have to taste amazing. It just needs to taste fine to me. It's like, yeah, okay, this is fine. And then I would do 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream and 3/4 of a cup of water. And then I would drink that until it feels, because what I think you're doing is, instead of having water with a bit of heavy cream, you're having heavy cream with a bit of coffee, right? And I'm just asking, like, just take your time, because if you keep going like this, what's going to happen is that it'll be a year from now, you'll still be telling me the same thing. I'm stalled, and how do I trick my body? There is no way to trick your body into not feeling attacked by the casomorphin and the heavy, the carbohydrates coming in. Can I just do a little something with you? Oh, can I do it on my computer? I'll do it on my computer. Let's see if I can do this while I'm chatting with you guys. No, I can't do it on my computer. Okay, I'll do it on my phone while I'm chatting. But, like, I think that the carb count that you would be having is probably quite high. I'm gonna double check, because I don't know. Like, a cup and a half. I've never had an actual cup and a half of heavy cream to know, like. So that's 35 heavy. Heavy cream. I've never had that much to know that, like, what would happen. Huh? When I want to do something quickly, that's when I won't be able to do it quickly. Okay. So let's say we go here, heavy whipping cream, and we're going to change it to cups. And I'm going to say 1.5. So the carb count, and I'm assuming that you've already done this, but I just wanted to double check for myself what the carb count is. Is that right? No, I took it whipped. I don't want it whipped. I want fluid. Thank you. So the carb count on 1.5 cups of heavy whipping cream is 9.8 grams of carb. Now, I'm assuming net and versus total would be the same, because I don't think there's any fiber in here, but let me double check, because, yeah, no, there's no fiber in there, right? Okay. There's no starch either. Okay. So here's my thing. That's half of your day's carb count if you were doing keto. And now, whoops, sorry. And now my new question was, well, why wouldn't I just keep doing keto then? Like, what's the point of doing carnivore if I'm letting in this large amount of carbohydrate? And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, because you're saving the plant toxins. That is true. But I'm still letting in 10 grams of carbs. Now, it's better than plants, but I'm not really sure I'm understanding the process that you're going through, because the unfortunate reality is you're telling me that it's stalling you. Oh, there was fat in there, by the way. How much fat are you getting? Just to clarify and, like, put everything in perspective. You're getting 128 grams of fat. Now, I'm just thinking about myself. For my day, I need about 100-ish grams of fat per day. So you're getting more than 1 serving of fat. You're saying you're doing it sometimes more than once a day. So maybe twice, maybe 3 times. I'm not sure how many times you're doing this coffee. But now we've gone from 10 grams of carbs to 20 or even 30 grams of carbs. And we've gone from 128 grams of fat to 250 or 375 grams of fat. Do we see where this becomes problematic? Because that's a lot of fat that my body will need to do something with. So drinking our energy is always a bad idea, right? And I'm saying that knowing that I used to do it. But again, why was I doing it? I was trying to block weight loss. I was trying to block it. So because I was trying to block weight loss, yes, I was drinking a bit of butter in my coffee, but I was a bit of butter. It was like maybe 45 grams of butter, right? Which added to my total fat for the day was still keeping me in a good place. What I'm pointing out to you here is that you've taken the heavy cream to a point where now it sounds like the heavy cream is not no longer keeping you in a good place. So it's not like it's satiating you from the fat, and it sounds like the carbohydrate count is to an extent that's causing you to have issues. So, like I said, I would strategically, if it was me, I would just maybe take a third off that first time and then just start moving it back until I was having either an amount that I was okay with. But then I would encourage you, because of the history that you have with heavy cream, you have two options. When you get to an amount that you're okay with, like let's say you get to 2 tablespoons, let's say if that's the number you decide on, and you're okay having 2 tablespoons in your coffee, I would always put my coffee mug on a scale, pour my heavy cream, so 2 tablespoons would be 30 grams. I would pour that heavy cream till I saw 30 grams on the scale, and I would do it that way every day moving forward to not overdo it. If you get to the point where you try to do that and it doesn't work, option two is the other option, which is like you stop putting heavy cream in your coffee. And that might mean you learn either to A, drink coffee black, B, maybe using butter will have less negative impact on you because you won't have the casomorphins. Did I explain what those were? Casomorphin triggers dopamine. So it triggers the reward center in our brain because it's an opioid type substance that comes from the breakdown of the protein in dairy products. And that's all dairy products. Cheese does it to us too. Like all dairy products have some level. Butter does have some, which they say is negligible amounts. They say it's not enough to. Guess what? It triggered me. So I'm just saying, like, violet syndrome helps me so much. Every time that I touch something I'm not supposed to, my body reacts. Whether it reacts with me having pain, or in the case of casomorphin and the butter, I started chasing. So I was so used to having one coffee a day. Just one. When I took coffee out of my diet, because that's what happened, and I started to have, and I'll talk about this in a video that I'm planning to do, but I started to have like just like butter like in water, like if it tasted almost like if it was a milk drink, but it wasn't. Even that little bit of trace amounts of casomorphin that they're saying is in butter, I went from having one hot drink, which is what I was having all the time, even when I was doing even when I was doing coffee, I was down to having one coffee per day, and then I was having two, sometimes wanting to have a third. I didn't ever have the third one, but I could see like that's what made me start thinking about it. Like I went from having one hot drink a day back to having two hot drinks a day, wanting to have three, and I'm like, no, 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 no. The casomorphin is getting me. So we need to listen to our bodies. Although everything I'd ever read said the amounts of casomorphin in butter is not enough to get us, it was getting me. You need to look at what's happening with you and see if you can sort this out in a way that helps you to feel, first of all, in control of what you're doing, but second of all, to help your body to heal. Because whether it's struggling because of all the plant toxins, or whether it's struggling because 10 grams of carbohydrates is still 10 grams of carbohydrates, and if you're having 3 of them per day, you're at 30 grams of carbohydrate. Like it's still sugar coming in that your body didn't need. Oh, and by the way, I didn't even think about this. Some of that sugar is going to be galactose. For everyone out there who's not aware, galactose is only processed, or is like 90% processed by the liver. Has a similar scenario happening as fructose. It's our liver has to work on it, and only 10% can be used in other processes throughout the body. Not great. So these are all things that aided me in my decision to remove dairy from my diet. People sometimes ask me if I can have salt, if I can have salt to taste and eat until I'm full. Why does my body scream for sweet? Could salt also be an addiction? So no. And the difference being that you can overdo salt. Um, and when you overdo salt, you don't want to eat the food. So it's a really interesting thing. Like when people, like if you were to put, and I remember doing this as a kid, when you put sugar on cereal, it seems like an infinite amount of, like, you can just keep putting sugar and putting sugar and putting sugar. And like, and even when that whole sugar diet video that I made, talking about people doing this stupid diet, like they were straight up putting sugar in water and drinking it. And I do remember as a kid making chocolate milk. So it's already milk and the chocolate mix, which is sweet already, and still adding sugar to it, where I was pulling it through a straw and I could feel the granules of sugar. So, like, that does not happen with salt. The average person throws salt in their mouth straight. That's not a pleasant thing for them. I have been doing keto and carnivore now, so carnivore for the last 2 years, but I've been off sugar, like straight sugar, like, foolishness, for 8 years almost in April. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, when you throw salt in your mouth, even today when I throw salt in my mouth, it's different. I don't do that for a joke. I will put salt if I am having a cramp for some reason, or if I need some salt, like I will do it. But to just salt things that don't need salt, no. If I oversalt my food, I don't want to eat it. So salt does not work the same way. There's an amount that our body is looking for, but it isn't an amount that it's not an amount that is excessive. And so I would say no. I would challenge anyone to like think about that idea, because I don't think that they're comparable. Now, and the other thing that I will point out is that when we eat till fullness on a standard diet, it's often till our stomach feels distended. When we eat till fullness on a keto diet, it's often till our stomach is distended, which is why Dr. Westman encouraged people to eat to satiation rather than eating till fullness, because you can still overdo it. And he was encouraging people to measure and weigh everything that they're eating. Now, I will say something else. When I talk about eating to satiation, I also encourage you eat from meat to vegetation. Because if you eat from meat to vegetation, what you end up doing is you end up making sure that, first of all, you finish the important part on your plate. But second of all, most importantly, you end up, if you do want to leave some food away, like, so you're no longer, so you've got that satiation point and you don't feel hungry anymore, you're leaving vegetation behind. I think if we eat from vegetation to meat, because we know the meat's what's important, we will end up eating till fullness because we're trying to finish the meat. I have no problem anymore throwing vegetation away. Like, even when I was doing keto, if I got to the end and I was no longer hungry, I'd throw the vegetation in the garbage. I don't have a problem with people coming to my house and eating, and if the vegetation, throw it in the garbage. Like, I don't care. I think that we need to start understanding that it's okay to throw away something that's not food. The vegetation is on your plate for fun, so you can throw it away. So if you eat until you're full on a carnivore diet, that's when it changes. The interesting thing about carnivore is that I've never been able to eat too full on carnivore where my stomach felt distended. I always had the like visceral stop eating violet happen before my stomach felt distended. And that's especially if the meat that I was eating had a good amount of fat on it. If I have a lean piece of meat on the plate, like what happened last night, even though I had 2 really good sized pork chops that were coming out to like, I would say a good 500 and some odd grams. Like it was more than a pound last night. And I had calamari that we fried in butter at home. Even though I had both of those things and I had the butter that I fried my pork chops in, poured in my plate, and I used it to eat. But all of that, I finished everything on the plate, and there was like almost no butter left in the plate when I was done. Still, I was like, huh, I could eat a little bit more, and my stomach was not distended. Like I was totally fine. So it's interesting to me that if the fat on my meat is not, like if it's not a good cut where there's like fat in the meat itself and not just on the edges, I still seem to struggle a little bit with, yeah, I still seem to struggle a little bit with, like, I don't get that ick, like, okay, it's time to stop eating happen. Um, and I mean, that's just the way it goes. Sometimes I underestimate how fatty the meat looks to me. But I will say, I still didn't eat anything else after supper last night. I still haven't had anything today, and we are 1:10. And I had supper last night at around 7-ish, I believe. Yeah, 7-ish. So I feel fine. And these are things that like it's about trusting yourself. Honestly, that's what it is. But it's salt the food to taste. If you oversalt it, you're gonna know. And if you undersalt it, it's not gonna taste salted enough. So I hope that makes sense. Please update me on the skin issues, weight loss. My skin is amazing. So the issues that she's talking about is I used to have like issues with my hands feeling. I'm gonna try to show you with this camera. Can I just see if I can get myself in focus here? Where is it gonna be in focus? Is it focus here? I think it's in focus here. Okay, so I used to have like skin that would just flake off my hands. Um, I don't want to use this camera because it gets wonky if you try to mess with the focus. But my hands used to have like all kind. This hand particularly, it looked like like calluses all over my hands. I also had rashes. Um, like my skin was perpetually just like not having good elasticity. And since I learned about the difference between animal fat and plant fats, and I've removed avocado oil, olive oil, and coconut oil from my diet pretty much completely by this point, I would say that yeah, like I can't remember the last time I had any of those oils. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I've had any of those oils. By removing those oils from my diet and really focusing on butter for cooking, so I'm not putting it in my coffee, or well, I'm not drinking coffee anymore anyways, but like I'm not putting it in a drink anymore. So for cooking, I'm using it butter or I'm using tallow and lard or bacon grease. Like those are the four main cooking fats that I'm using right now. So since making those decisions, my skin has just been getting better and better and better. And like in person right now, like there's one little dot right there that I can see that just looks like a little bit of dry skin, but otherwise my two hands look okay. So here I can see a little dot and over here I can see another little dot. But besides that, my two hands look identical, which is like amazing because I used to have such problems with this hand. And I'm recovering from a cut that I got the other day, and this is healing nicely. That's the other thing I would say about my skin is that I feel like I'm healing faster, better. Um, when you've ever broken a bone or like, had like issues with bones and like how they line up, the doctor tells you that the bone is just going to stay that forever. I have a bone that like I apparently broke that had a big bump on it and it's actually going away. Like in this 8 years of eating healthy, it is so I'm part of me wishes I would have taken a video or image of it before because it used to actively protrude through my skin. Like not through my skin, but it used to protrude so you could see it. Like if you looked at my skin, you could see the bone pushing.
it's not there anymore, so I can't even it's not visible like that anymore, so I can't even take a picture. But it just amazes me that my body has is even healing my bones, right? Again, all the joint issues I've had in my feet, and like my 2 feet are actually looking similar again. My body is putting itself back to what it is supposed to look like. I love that. So, is there any other things like physically that we could see different? Oh, I don't know if there's anything else. But yeah, my skin, my weight loss. I mean, like I said, I've been stable on my weight since 8 years now. Going like April 20th will be 8 years. Well, no, I want to say October. So it was like 6 months, April to October, because we were on a trip. So I want to say 8 months, 6 months is when I no, it is 5 months because oh, I remember now. I had a weigh in five. Yeah, I don't know why I can't remember right now today why like the when my actual hitting of the goal weight was, but it was 5 months in. I just remember now, and it was in September. And yeah, so I've been since September 2018 at goal weight, and that's eight almost. It's gonna be 8 years, right? And that's wild. So I'm 7 years plus at goal weight, and I was never able to do that before. Like in the history of being me, like it was lose it, put it back, lose it, put it back, and never did I. I don't even think I've ever made a year without putting it back. If I made a year, that's amazing. But I don't think I think I was shy of a year. So I feel awesome, but need to make sure my body is really healing if I'm not losing weight. Am I really healing then? So weight loss is interesting to me because people think weight loss equals healthy. That's not how that goes. And I also feel like the flip side of the coin is also true. If there's intense repair needed, your body might actually ask you for more food, which is another thing that I thought was really cool. Like when we went on vacation and I ended up eating more on vacation, my body ended up losing weight. And at first I thought, well, it could be water weight because where we went was warm. Although I was in air conditioning 90% of the time because I don't like the heat. And when I wasn't in air conditioning, I was in the pool. So like I was skeptical that it could have just simply been the heat, the few minutes it took me to walk to the pool or to walk to the dining room to eat our meal because all the meals were air conditioned. So all the restaurants, sorry, were air conditioned. But in the end, what I realized was that very likely my body needed the extra energy to do some repairs. And after so because I ate 2 meals a day every day on that vacation because the supper meals were very lean. And so I needed to get my fat in earlier in the day. So I was having my fatty breakfast, which was, eggs and bacon and like sausages and just like trying to get as much fat in the daytime as I could. And then in the evening, I was having, pork chops and like just, but it was always the meats were always so lean. So it was driving me a little nuts. But I ate my suppers too, and I just ate them, and it was whatever it was. On that vacation, I think I had two pieces of vegetation. I had a piece of asparagus, and I had a piece of broccoli, like a floret of broccoli and one piece of asparagus. And the rest of the time, all I ate was the meat and the eggs. I didn't really have fish, interestingly, so I didn't have any fish, but that's what I had. So my body ended up losing weight on that trip. And when I came back, I really thought I would have put the weight back on. Um, it didn't happen. And what ended up happening was decided to up my butter intake to put the weight back on because I didn't like how thin I looked. And so, like I said, I'm still at the same weight that I've been at for like the longest time. And I'm probably going to go up in weight soon because I started working out. And I'll probably talk about that at some point. But I want you to understand that your body pausing to do some repairs is a good thing. Um, I did have a stall during my weight loss, although my weight loss was really quick, so I only had the one stall. But I'm sure it was because my body was repairing some stuff. I was eating the same. I was while I was doing keto, so I was eating the same. I didn't hadn't changed anything, and I can say that because when I was doing keto, like my meals were. That's how I help myself. By the way, when I tell you guys, like, plan your stuff and like, I don't tell you that just to tell you that. That's how I help myself. Like, I know what I'm going to eat. Even when I was talking to you guys about, like, possibly adding fish, seafood to my routine of eating, when I said to you that I'm going to figure out like how to eat better, and and I said I'm gonna add some seafood to each of my meals, and that way I'll know what to do. It was because I was being serious. That way I know what to do. If I add, let's say I add calamari to one of my meals, then I know every time I have, so for example, if every time I have chicken, I have calamari, then I know every time I have chicken, I'm gonna have calamari. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to pause. There's no question marks. It's like by assigning a kind of seafood to a kind of meat, all I've done is I've taken my meat meals and made them surf and turf. And I choose things that I like, so it's not a problem. And I think that's the best possible way to make sure that we are meeting our body's needs, right? Because the more repeatable it is for me, the more of a chance that I do it properly, and the more of a chance that I do it properly, then the better opportunity I give myself to eat on plan every single day. Because, of course, that's what we want to do, right? We want to eat on plan every single day. So I don't think you need to be worried about a stall until, according to Dr. Ekberg, I think it was, or it was either Ekberg or Fung, one of them. They're talking about stalls, and they said, like, you're not in a stall unless it's like 2 months that you haven't lost weight. But before that, they're like, that's not a stall. That's your body doing some good internal cleanup, especially if you are still eating the right way, and your weight isn't rising. If you're just stable, let your body do the cleanup. One last thing I will point out, Wellness Warrior, if you happen, so K-Day, if you happen to be the kind of person who is working out, if that's something that you're doing for your good health, when we gain muscle mass, it might look like we're not losing weight because fat per square inch weighs less than muscle per square inch. So it could be that your body is shifting, and rather than you're on a stall. So the other thing you can do is just look at how your clothes fit. Are your clothes fitting you well? Do you feel like everything is good? Because if your clothes are fitting you well, then that could be an indication that everything is fine. And especially if your clothes are fitting better, that could be a great indication that everything is fine, and that your body is doing exactly what your body should be doing. And right? So that's another way that you can do that, is just helping yourself to verify these things. Like, so take another step to verify by looking at how your clothes fit. I think a lot of people don't pay enough attention to how their clothes fit. Hi, is this Stephanie? Huh, I'll catch you on the upload. No problem. Thanks for dropping in to say hi, Stephanie. Um, I love that. Let's see here. Thank you. So you're welcome. More than happy. I see comments on screen that are not in chat. Are you streaming on a second channel as well? What I'm doing, thank you for the question. What I'm doing is I have StreamYard, and so I'm streaming both ways. I'm streaming vertically and I'm streaming horizontally, but it's only to one account, just to help just help people find me, because I know some people have told me they've been missing my notifications for live streams, and I think it's because if you happen to be in the short shelf, you're not going to see my notification if it's for a horizontal video. So I thought this was just an easy way to help people to see the live stream. So that's all it is. Thanks for the question. Would you say herbs and spices would make us eat more than we actually need, just like variety on the plate? So, what I learned from Dr. Chafee is that herbs and spices tend to be the most toxic part of the plant. And I'm starting there because I think that that's important for us all to understand. We're taking the part of the plant that the plant is using to try to push us away, right? It's trying to say, like, no, like, don't indulge in me. And we're taking that and we're using it as fun on our plate, let's say. So that's one thing that I'm going to say. But then the other thing that I'm going to say is that yes, when we look at the carb count on some of these foods, we start to realize that yeah, they're higher, like carb count on some of these spices. We can see that especially if you're using mixed spices, the carb count is quite high for a tablespoon, for example, or a teaspoon. Whatever the serving is, like you, and then the part that's hard is that do we use the serving? So when I was doing keto, I did the test. I took my serving, so what it said for the spices that I like, my Montreal chicken spice. So I took that amount and then I tried to spice the chicken that I plan to eat with just the amount of, it was nowhere near what I was putting on my chicken. So the other problem is that when they show you a serving size and they tell you that's how much carbohydrates in it, plus or minus, yes, that's probably what's how much carbohydrate is in it. But then we add the added problem of most of us are putting more than what the serving size is. Might be one, it might be 5 times the amount. In my guess, I was probably putting about 5 times the amount of this Montreal chicken spice compared to what they told me the serving size was. So these are all bits and pieces of carbohydrates that we need to pay attention to. But I'm much more today, now that I've spoken to Dr. Chafee, I'm much more concerned about the toxins in the spices than I am the carb count in the spices because that's concentrated down, right? Like it's not even like we're biting one jalapeno and being like, oh my God, and we go away. Like they've concentrated it down and put it in a sauce with all kinds of other stuff, or they've concentrated it down and put it in a powder with all kinds of other stuff, and we're putting it on our food. So I do think it's something to pay a lot of attention to. Yes, the carb count is shocking, and I do sometimes this twice a day. Okay, so twice a day, like I said, that's 20 grams of carbs. So now you're right at the edge. So even though you're technically carnivore, your carb count is keto. So and so if I was in your story, since my carb limit was actually 18, doing 20 would mean that my body would struggle. It's possible that your body is struggling. It's possible. It's also possible that your body is repairing and you're just in a stall. But I still would encourage you, because you know that you're chasing this stuff, I would still encourage you to try to get it under control by making adjustments. Do you stay in ketosis? When in ketosis, even when I drink coffee, my dreams sleep are amazing. Um, so first of all, we're not supposed to remember our dreams. So it's interesting to me that you're telling me that you remember your dreams, because what that's telling me is for some reason you're not dreaming, you're not sleeping as deeply as you should be, because yeah, we're not supposed to remember our dreams. So that's one thing that I want you to think about. Um, and usually the only reason that we remember our dreams is because we wake up during the dream, and that's why we remember it. Something to think about. I have the feeling that the casomorphin and the excessive amounts of carbs in what you're drinking could be disturbing your sleep. Um, so do I stay in ketosis? When I did verify with my CGM, what I could see was that I had ketones every single time I ate, and I have that once a day, and then they would kind of level out and go back to normal, and then the next day when I ate, and so my body is living in a ketogenic state, and it's normal for us to have, so just for clarity, it's normal for us to have both ketones and carbohydrates being used in our body because our body makes the carbohydrates that we need, and we do use them because we do need them. It's when they're in excess, just like the uric acid, when things are in excess, that's when they become problematic for us. So, yes, um, great arguments. Thanks, Violet. We tend to over sugar things more easily than over salt them. Very insightful. We'll definitely use that one. No problem. I hope that, I guess I'm understanding that somebody made that comment to you, like maybe you're just addicted to salt. You know, again, they should watch Dr. Barry's conversation about salt. He talked about how animals will travel for such great distances to find salt licks and all kinds of stuff. So every animal on the planet needs salt. Yo-yo was me also until carnivore. Okay. Okay, so if you were yo-yo dieting before you went carnivore, so that I'm assuming you were keto before that, but you were still yo-yoing, and so basically allowing yourself to step out, I want you to understand that from what you're telling me, that makes me now believe that the casomorphin is causing you to yo. So this indulgence you're doing of heavy cream is a different form of yo-yo dieting, and it's unfortunate. I have a video coming up where I'm going to talk about what happened to me. And you will see very clearly that I also got pulled back in. And it's crazy because I've been doing this for so long. It's crazy. I was like nowhere near thinking that I could ever be pulled back in again. But if you're not paying close enough attention and you don't recognize the signs, which is what I think you're telling me right now, like you were yo-yo dieting on keto or standard diet, now you're using heavy cream in a similar way and you're not letting yourself see it. Unfortunately, the risk I think possibly could be there, this is me guessing, is that if you keep allowing the heavy cream to cause this, it will eventually be 3 times a day. It might even get to be 4 times a day. And then we risk weight rapidly going back on, right? And we also risk that you end up touching something like one of these things because you're kind of spiraling. Let's not let that happen. So I would much rather see you address this before it becomes more of an issue. And actually, that you just reminded me of something. I have a newsletter coming, which I forgot to put the link in the description. But for those of you who are here, just check back after the stream and I'm going to put that link in the description. But I have a newsletter coming where I'm going to be just sharing some insights. Everything's explained in the dot the link you go to, but I also want to give you guys like the videos and the ideas and some actionable things to do so that we tackle this stuff regularly. I think that one of the reasons that we end up yo-yoing or we end up falling off or we is because we don't have anything to work on regularly. So I'm gonna try my best. Like I was supposed to put it in before the stream started because I remembered earlier and then I forgot it. I was doing stuff and I forgot again. But I will put it in after the live stream so that you guys can have the link. And if you want to register for the newsletter, and of course you're getting the videos. In case you missed any of them, you can click on the ones that YouTube hid from you, and you can see the videos. It still frustrates me. You can't imagine how much it frustrates me that my videos towards helping people get healthier don't get shown as much as people who are telling people to drink sugar water to lose weight. Like that makes me so angry. But and if you guys don't mind sharing the video, that really would help me because the more people watch it, the more likely YouTube is to share it to other people. So I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much in advance. Um, when you go out for a long times, do you prepare food? What food do you prepare for like a lunch? I don't eat lunch. I have one meal a day, and I've been doing that since the first year that I did keto, and that all happened naturally. Um, because I learned how to do keto carnivore from Dr. Westman and Dr. Fung, like the two of them were my people that gave me my health data. Dr. Westman helped me to understand that we only eat when we're hungry. So I only will eat something when I feel hungry. That includes drinking something. Like I don't take a drink before I'm hungry. And for people who don't know, if you get a hunger signal and you drink something and the hunger goes away, it's because you were thirsty. So I do often try to start with taking a drink because I know that thirst is signaled to us the same way that hunger is. Um, Sorry. And then the other thing that I will say is that as I was doing my keto lifestyle, well, before I started my keto lifestyle, I was only doing 2 meals a day, anyways, because I was running my daughter to daycare and blah blah blah. And I just never had time for breakfast when I was feeding her breakfast and all that stuff. Um, my daughter is not a quick eater, never has been. So it was just like trying to get her out of the house and on time for school. I never had breakfast, and then I would run off to work. So I would have lunch and supper, normal standard diet. Um, when I became keto, fast forward to my life there, I went back to 3 meals a day because Dr. Westman said 3 meals a day, 20 grams of carbs for the day or less. I did 3 meals a day, thinking that's what I had to do. As I learned more from Dr. Fung and Dr. Barry and Dr. Berg and all the other doctors with this whole fasting idea, I understood that if I'm not hungry, that's fine too. So Dr. Westman kind of confused me in the beginning a little bit because he's like, like only eat when you're hungry. But then he said, like, but have breakfast. Breakfast did catalyze me being hungry. When I understood from Dr. Fung, especially that you should not be eating anything before you actually feel hungry, like real time hungry. So then I would drink my water, and when I felt hungry, that's when I would have lunch. And so back then, my lunch was it could be anything as simple as whatever I had for supper, I had the next day for lunch. That's another thing I want to point out to you once where my focus was always on healthy, not on what I was eating, because and I had to make that adjustment. I had like my mind had to wrap around that. I love meat. I will always love meat. I never liked vegetables. I never liked fruit. So this was a new world. I was putting down all the side dishes that I typically liked, and I was picking up all these side dishes that I normally didn't eat. I learned about a bunch of vegetables, a bunch of leafy vegetables, and all kinds of stuff in order to do keto. And then, so that would be, so whatever I had for supper might have been my lunch the next day. And I just played that game, right? Like I had a piece of meat and some vegetables, piece of meat and some vegetables. That's what I was doing until eventually I realized that I was not eating my lunch because I was only eating when I'm hungry. I wasn't eating my lunch until it was like 4, 5 o'clock. And then like in 2 hours, I was supposed to have supper. So eventually it didn't make sense for me to keep bringing lunch. And then I would just wait till supper and I had supper. And that took about a year to accomplish where I was like, and I accomplished, I wasn't aiming at it. It just happened. I was following my hunger like Dr. Westman had taught me. And by the end of it, I was 1 meal a day. I have remained 1 meal a day mostly. The difference being today, if I feel hungry midday, I will have lunch. My go to lunch is typically, I would say, a bunch of bacon. And I mean enough bacon that, like, by the time I'm finished eating it, I'm like, okay, I had enough. So it's a full on meal of bacon. If I have like meat in the fridge that I hadn't finished from another meal, I would also have that if I was hungry. But usually, what happens with that stuff is that I will know it's there and I will just make less of something else and combine it together so that I don't lose meat because I don't want to throw meat away, but I also know I need to eat it within 24 hours because of the histamine issues and etc. So I try very hard not to make too much meat for myself. Um, yeah, so for the most part, I try to be careful about what I do. But I don't eat lunch anymore, so I don't worry about that. But back in the day, what I would have had would have been whatever I had for supper. Now, I've been caught out being hungry because I was recovering from a cold, actually the flu, and my body just needed food. And so in the middle of my day, I needed food. To go home and cook something was not an option. So what I did was I jumped in my car, I drove to the closest grocery store, and I bought sliced, sliced ham, I believe it was. I bought sliced ham and sliced uh, like provolone cheese. I just happen to like provolone. It's neutral enough tasting to me. But I could have done the same thing with cheddar or mozzarella. Those are the three cheeses that I could possibly eat if I needed to eat cheese. I've taken dairy out of my life, so I don't eat cheese anymore. But if I needed to eat some cheese, those would be the ones. But back when this happened, I was still eating dairy. And so I was hungry as heck. I bought my ham and I bought some cheese slices. And the goal was to use the cheese slices to eat the ham so that my hands were not ridiculously filthy. That was the goal. If I would do the same thing today, because I don't eat dairy now, I probably would have just bought the ham and my hands would have been messy and I would have washed them afterwards and whatever. It would have been fine. But again, I don't have utensils at work because I don't eat at work. So there's no need for utensils. So that was the thing I did. But I think that if you are in a pickle and you feel hungry and you need something to eat, there's always a way to find a healthy something to eat. I mean, I equally could have, asked, like, if I really needed to eat something and I didn't want to have that, probably could have called my mom, asked her to make me some eggs, gone and grabbed them and gotten back to work in time. But like going to the Maxi was closer than going to my mom's, and I only had an hour, so that's why I did it that way. But if I had 2 hours, I probably would have just gone home and cooked something, cook myself some eggs, and I would have had enough time to cook them, eat them, and get back to work. So there's always an answer. I think if you're going to be at work, I would probably, let's say I was a teacher, I probably would take eggs with me, like boiled eggs. Those are easy, and I love boiled eggs. Maybe take some bacon. It's easy and it's not bad cold. But I probably would take something, or even ham slices, not bad cold. I would probably take something that I don't mind eating cold, and just that would be what I would do. Hello, Nigel. Um, I always use the scale just for data so I could understand fluctuations. I've learned that when I weight train, the scale goes up 2 pounds, then trends down every day afterwards from inflammation. The Okay, so it's going up. You think it's going up because of inflammation? Okay. I mean, I'll believe you. I don't know much about that, but what I would say then, it trends down for 2 days afterwards as your body heals. Okay. I guess that's when I hear weightlifters and bodybuilders and etc. talking about after they work out the pump, I guess they're talking about inflammation that's happening. So I guess that makes sense. Um, at the end of the day, little bits of inflammation that are happening naturally because my body is doing something good are fine. There's some of the things I learned from Dr. Eid and Dr. Hampton, that it's normal for our body to be inflamed when it's supposed to be inflamed. And then it's also normal for our body to like recover and then not be inflamed anymore. The issue is when we are either eating foods that keep our cortisol high and we have that drip of sugar coming in all the time. That's a problem. But also, it's a problem when we're just eating sugar that's keeping us inflamed all the time and causing problems. But having a natural, because I worked out, inflammatory, my body needs to heal to make those muscles stronger. Blah, that's very likely absolutely perfect. When our body works the way it's supposed to work, it is absolutely perfect. And that's what I love about it. It's when our body is doing craziness because we're eating craziness that it becomes a problem. When I've stuffed myself with meat, I can get a second wind with adding the slightest bit of sugar-free barbecue sauce. We can possibly also overeat protein and fat that way. Yes, of course. So what you're doing is you're triggering the cephalic response, right? When our mouth tastes sweet, a signal goes straight to our brain saying, "Hello, sugar coming in. We're in trouble." And that's a problem, even if it's sugar-free, by the way. Like our body doesn't know the difference between sugar-free and sugar full, like real sugar. So when
When you eat something sugar free and we think, oh, it's safe because there's no sugar in it, your body's still reacting. That's part of the reason we get hungry. And this came to me one time when I was, I used to drink diet soda, and for some reason, I had a diet soda between meals. So like I think I don't even remember why I had the soda because I was already one meal a day at that point. But somehow I ended up having a soda and I drank it. And then hours before I was would normally be hungry, I was ravenous. It was crazy. I was like, what is going on? This doesn't make any sense. Eventually, what I realized, because I it happened again, and I was like, whoa, every time I have a diet soda away from food, I'm starving. And so the thing is, if you have a diet soda with food, and I was keto at the time when this was happening, because you're taking in carbs from your vegetables, everything is fine. But when you have just the diet soda, yep, you're gonna be able to eat more because your body thinks that there's this high sugar thing coming in. And of course, if your body thinks a lot of sugar is coming in because diet soda is very sweet, then of course you'll be able to have more of whatever it is that you're eating. So it makes total sense to me that if you had sweet sauce, you're going to be able to have more of whatever you're eating. Is it the best thing to do though? Not really. If your body told you were full, it's because you were full. It's like we need to learn to listen to our body and stop when we're supposed to stop. Building muscle causes good inflammation from micro tears. Yep. Yeah. The muscles retain water for the repair, then releases it. Well, actually, I mean, there's a lot more chemistry happening there than that. But yes, like your body and whatever part of you that is being repaired does retain water, but because the fluids are necessary for the actual repairs to happen, because there's a lot of chemical reactions happening. Part of the reason that what our swollen parts, like if you ever had a swollen elbow or knee or whatever, and you touch it, why it feels warm, there's a bunch of chemical reactions happening. Our bodies are so amazing, and like we just barely understand them, like barely, and yet we try to manipulate them like we know better, which is the part that drives me absolutely up the wall. Absolutely up the wall. Lamb says, I ended a 3-day fast today. Just wanted to know when I would get hungry. I didn't, but I was developing a slight headache on day 3 and ended it. Still looking for real hunger cues to appear. So, by the way, Lambs, just so you know, getting a headache is a real cue. So, like, yes, your stomach feeling hungry is one way that our body tells us that we need food. But there's lots of people that I was one of those people. Like, I would get a headache if I didn't eat in a reasonable amount of time. And part of the reason that that happens is because we've kind of learned to ignore our stomach signals because first of all, we were feeding ourselves when we shouldn't have been feeding ourselves. So like our stomach, if you're always putting food in, like the signal, like what does it even mean? But then on the flip side of the coin, when we work and we're busy and we're focused on a bunch of stuff, oftentimes we just are not paying attention to the stomach signal. And so our body giving us a headache is another way for it to tell us, hey, you need to go get food. So that is one of the signals. Another one is extreme fatigue. When you just all of a sudden feel exhausted, like you want to fall asleep and you haven't eaten, it's another signal that your body is telling you that you need to eat something. If you're really thirsty, and like you're drinking and it's like it just doesn't seem to be quite like, so our body has lots of other ways to signal us than just stomach grumbling. So please always listen to your body. If you have a headache, you stop, you eat. If you feel dizzy, that's another one. I had someone that was telling me that every time they get the slightest bit, like if they try to fast, they get dizzy. That's your body telling you you're going too long. You need to eat. So there's more signs than we even understand. Yep. That's where the term get swole comes from. The muscles are literally swollen. LOL. Okay. Perfect. I feel like that was the last one. It seems like it. Okay. This was amazing. Gosh, we've been going for 2 hours and a half. Love talking to you guys. Please share the video. It really does help. I want more people to understand this information. So if you can share it anywhere by email, to your socials, share the video so that people can have this great information.
I love talking to you guys. I will talk to you next Monday at 11:20. Eat healthy food, prioritize your health, and I will talk to you next week. Bye, guys. Today's video is brought to you by my keto consultations. You know how to do keto, but you're having trouble just sticking with it? Book a consultation with me and we're going to get you back on track. The link is in the description.